Hi, I'm Frank Diamond, the managing editor of Infection Control Today, where we're trying to give infection preventionists and others on the front lines the information they need to battle COVID-19. A lot of energy these days seems to be put into creating a vaccine for COVID-19. Also, diagnostic tools. Everybody wants more and better. But are we using the tools we currently have in the right way? Are we using relatively recent technology, or at least recently adapted technology, in the right way? Which brings me to today's guest, Mark Beeston. Mr. Beeston is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Vioguard, a company that makes devices that deliver ultraviolet rays for the purposes of disinfection. Mr. Beeston will not be talking about Vioguard products today. You can find out about them on the website. So no plugs, but he will discuss just how the use of ultraviolet rays has become more in use in recent years and how it can be put to use in the present COVID pandemic. Mr. Beeston, thanks for joining us today.
Sure. Thanks, Frank. Thanks for having me.
Now, what is the main hurdle when it comes to hospitals and other healthcare facilities using UV light? And I know you deal with, what do they tell you if they're not using it, or is that a moot point? Are they all using it now?
No, so UVC has been around for a really long time. It's been in HVAC, it's been in water, and it's been effective. So it's worked, right? And what we're seeing in hospitals is sort of the early adopters grabbing hold of UVC technology. They're learning that it works. They're understanding how it works. They're understanding how to use it. So I would think one of the main hurdles that we're seeing in the hospital setting is just the pace in which they're working and the workflows in which they're managing and the patient loads that they're managing. New technology is a little bit slower to advance into the hospital setting in some environments because of the loads that they carry, the healthcare workers carry. And I think some of the financial strain that they're under. But I think as they're starting to utilize and look at UVC technology, it's really starting to grow and really sort of take wheels and start to move forward. And they're realizing that it's a great tool. They're learning how well it works. Now it's just looking at, okay, where in the workflow does it fit best and how do we manage it? And where can it be used? Where can this tool be used best? That's what we're seeing from the early adopters. And then we're starting to see some of the normal users start to pick up as well in their place as they follow right behind.
Well, let me ask the question you just posed. Where in the workflow can it be used best? Are we talking environmental service teams? My readers are mostly infection preventionists. How would they figure into it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think there's a couple of different technologies that we're looking at utilizing UVC, and there is, of course, the full room disinfection, systems, right? The robots, they call them, that disinfect a total room. And I think what I'm seeing in healthcare is that's coming out of the services, right? The cleaning services and EVS, right? They're manning those units. They're learning how to manage them, how to run them. They're wearing the protective gear to manage them and use them, and they're manning up to run those UVC equipment in wherever it's in the OR or it's step down rooms, whatever. So I think that's where we're seeing some of that technology. General UVC, and what I'm hearing from infection preventionists is, hey, we need a web of protection, right? They're looking at this as another tool in their tool bag or another arrow in their quiver. How do we utilize this and make it work in our workflow within our hospital setting? And so now we're seeing multiple types of UVC enter in to the hospital setting, the standalone devices that are looking at all the really dirty items that are touched by hands all the time, right? So that's where the phone, disinfecting phones comes in. Tablets, they're both Vocera that they wear on their around their necks. Just the communication devices, the entertainment systems. There's all those types of things that they're looking at. How do we disinfect that where it's appropriate, and how do we make that happen? So that's where now UVC is starting to fit in that space and work in that part of the workflow of the hospital.
You mentioned earlier in one of your responses that one of the hurdles is that people are moving so fast in hospitals, they just don't feel that they have the time to um, incorporate UVC into their work life. You've heard that before with other technology, like the electronic medical records. How long were they in coming on board? It was a long time, but
Yeah.
now they're working even faster and harder these days with COVID-19. So does that make it them less responsive to the idea of taking on new technology in the middle of this, or are they more receptive to it?
Um, and that's a really great question because the pace in which nurses, for example, are working, and even to learn one more device sometimes seems overwhelming for them. So if you can make the UVC technology fast, so and easy, so introducing our products, they love, less buttons are better, more automated is better, and quicker. So you try to build equipment that's got enough UV energy and kill pathogens well enough and document that's because that's important to clinicians, right? They see through the snake oil that's out there. And so they want to make sure that it's working in a speed that can fit in their workflow. And if you look at the time it takes to maybe wash your hands, around 20 seconds plus to effectively wash your hands, if you can fit in that under 60-second time zone, that's where this seems to be the sweet spot in the hospital setting, because they can put their phone in, go wash their hands and collect their phone and move on and fit within their workflow. And the other piece that's really important is in the hospital setting is, as you know, capital money is not easy to come by. So if you can provide equipment that fits below that capital spend and allow them to purchase enough UV devices to fit in their workflow, then it makes it easier, right? Because nurses have certain patterns that they follow each day, or physicians have certain patterns that they follow through the hospital. It's a certain workflow that they're following. And if you can put enough devices in place so that it stays within their workflow and their normal path of delivery, then they seem to welcome this type of equipment because they know it works. They know UVC works, and they welcome the opportunity to disinfect their stuff. But the sweet spot is making it fit in their workflow.
You mentioned nurses several times. It sounds like they're the key buy-in constituency, even though environmental services would be the ones using it.
So no, that's great. Environmental services likes the idea of UVC. They know it works. I think in terms of where we're fitting at Vioguard, we're fitting into that space where the individual users are using it on a daily basis, and even visitors to the hospital, right? Patients' families can use it, and when they come into a hospital, they wash their hands, they go through all the questions about COVID. Do they disinfect their phone at that time and think about where their phone has been and how many locations that phone has been all around outside of the hospital? So you want to provide a barrier of protection or a web of protection there. So nurses are a key component because they're users of our equipment. Physicians are key components or key users in our technology because it is quick. And that's, again, physicians need something that's fast, right? Because they're moving on the fly. And let's face it, physicians use their phones a lot. That's how they communicate with their office. That's how they communicate with other colleagues. That's how they communicate with their patients. So they understand the importance of disinfecting the devices that are held in their hands.
Where do infection preventions fit in?
So infection preventions are really the front line, right? Because they're the ones managing all of the infection control or prevention in that space. So let's say, for an example, in the operating room, right? You've got how many surfaces in the operating room and how many things need to be disinfected in the operating room. Well, infection preventionists are key in ensuring that there's a web of protection around that environment. So they're going to look at all the surfaces, the floors, the ceilings. They're going to look at all of that. So they're a key component and a key gatekeeper in UVC technology and where it goes. Their recommendations are key as a CNO may be looking at, you know, providing additional tools, they want to consult with their infection prevention team.
So you would use UVC in everything in a hypothetical operating room to disinfect it, everything, or would there be some things you wouldn't use it on?
So so UVC works great. It kills pathogens. We know that. There's a new study out that even shows that UVC is killing COVID and COVID-19, right? So that just came out from Boston University. So we're really seeing some great results from UVC. The limitations with UVC is that the light kills what it sees. So if you can have an enclosed environment and put devices into an enclosed environment, you know the light's going to encompass the whole 360-degree and encompass the whole surface and disinfect it. You know, however, if you're using a general light UVC light to disinfect a room, there's going to be some shadowing because, again, UVC will kill what it sees. So if there's some shadowing, you still need to have a team come in and do a chemical clean, a primary clean, if you will, on a lot of those surfaces because there's going to be some shadowing. So there are some limitations to that functionality because of how UVC works. It kills what it sees, UVC technology.
Okay. Mark Beeston, thank you so much for joining us here at Infection Control today.
You bet. Thanks, Frank.